Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday Night Live. So, today we're going to be talking about a topic that gets thrown around a lot of accusations around this topic, a lot of misunderstandings around this topic. So, we're going to be talking about spiritual bypassing, but there's a lot of areas that we're going to have to cover to get a clear understanding on spiritual bypassing. So, we're going to break down awakenings, awareness, intuition, but also spiritual ego. Spiritual ego is one of the biggest things when it comes to spiritual bypassing and also the spiritual journey. And it's very easy to fall into the spiritual ego. So we're going to break that down as well. And then we're going to go even harder and deeper. And we're going to go to spiritual psychosis. So is it psychic or is it psychosis, and the fine line between that? And we're also going to talk about discernment. And we're also going to talk about kind of appreciating where everybody's at in their journey because, I've talked about this topic, all of these topics before. And I really feel that, what I was talking about recently on my Substack was this kind of unconditional love timeline and breaking down really what is unconditional love. And as I've been kind of going deeper into that, um, unconditional love for the self, which then ripples out, I've come to a little bit of a more balanced perspective on these things, as opposed to my initial frustrations of what I've felt around these topics. So let's get started. We can't talk about spiritual bypassing without talking about what is a spiritual awakening, right? We need to lay the foundation first. So, what is a spiritual awakening? This is when your awareness expands. So, when your awareness goes from here to here. Now, sometimes that's a smooth process, sometimes that's a rocky process. And that's why we get spiritual psychosis, because when we go from here to here, sometimes we have some hiccups along the way. Now, let's get more into this, okay? So it's like it's the expansion of your awareness. It's the expansion of consciousness. But like the expansion of consciousness sounds so big. And it's like, let's bring this to a grounded place? So we have our twofold life. We have this life, this human life, this physical life. Here we are in the physical. There's bills, there's food, we need sleep. We have relationships with people, we have family, we have problems, we have medical stuff, we have this, we have that. This is our physical life. Everybody must participate in this life. That physical life, you're going to need your sleep, you're going to need your food, you're going to need your water, you're going to need your basic stuff. This is one life that we all are here in this physical reality. Then we have the twofold life. There's this other life that lives right above, lives parallel, which is your choice, whether you consent and choose to live in that second life. So we have this visible and this invisible life. And so, everybody's path is going to be different when it comes to awakening. And this is when we go from here to here. So this is our possibilities expand, our priorities might change. Um, our life, we have this casual life, and then we have maybe a bigger purpose, maybe a bigger connection, maybe something aware outside of ourselves, maybe more of a interconnectedness with the world around us, with people around us. We might also then change the way that we see ourselves. We no longer see ourselves through the lens of our identity. Our identity expands. So sometimes spiritual awakenings can create isolation, right? Because maybe other people in our life don't resonate with us anymore. And this is where we can kind of get into some of these other trickier areas of the spiritual journey. And then also, too, there's not just one spiritual awakening. We have many spiritual awakenings. I've probably had 50 spiritual awakenings in my life, and I'm still having them. Every couple of months, I'm having a new spiritual awakening. I'm in my spiritual awakening again right now. And that is like of this unconditional love. And we're going to get more into unconditional love because I'm really into this topic right now. And I don't like the spiritual bypassing way that people talk about it and just bliss. Is that unconditional or is bliss conditional? I think people are really misinterpreting what unconditional love is when they talk about it as just a state of bliss. Yeah, after you go through all the stuff, it could be blissful, but bliss no judgment. Those are conditions, the complete opposite of unconditional. Okay. So let's talk about like kind of very quickly what can trigger someone's spiritual awakening because there's many, many paths to it. Of course, we have a mystical experience, right? Like maybe you had a meditation that you had an experience. Maybe you saw something. Maybe you had a lucid dream. Maybe you had a UFO experience, like my first awakening when I was 5 years old, which I don't even count as my first awakening. Maybe it's a near death experience or a traumatic event. There's many different paths to this. Sometimes it could be through information. Sometimes you're going down the rabbit hole, and sometimes, which is why sometimes it could be conspiracies. Sometimes it could be health related stuff. New information makes you aware. It could also be travel, going to a new place in the world, activating something inside of you. And that new place, maybe you went to Bali, maybe you went to India, maybe you just went to another state and it opened your expansion from here to here. And that becomes a part of a spiritual awakening. An existential crisis is a great way to have a spiritual awakening. And why am I here? What is this? Is this life even worth living? What really matters? Life transitions of I'm no longer satisfied at this job. I'm no longer satisfied in this community. I'm no longer satisfied here. This existential crisis is an awesome way to go through a spiritual awakening. It's a great motivator. So then it could also be like maybe you had like some type of alternative experience. Like you went to, somebody said do Reiki, somebody said do a sound bath with me, try mushrooms. What about you think you're going to a yoga retreat? It ends up being an ayahuasca ceremony. Also, yoga. Yoga and mindfulness is another path to spiritual awakening. Synchronicities are paths to spiritual awakening. And you can go through many of these throughout your life. There's many people who are already awakened and then have a near death experience, or already awakened and then have a mystical experience, or already awakened and then have an existential crisis with their work or their relationship or their health. So there's many different spiritual awakenings and everything that brings your awareness from here to here. But now your awareness can be here, it can go here and then here. And then one thing that I've really loved about the spiritual journey is the more that my awareness has gone outward, it actually has become more to the self and more inside and more internal. And this is probably like that toroidal shape, right? Is that it goes outward, expands, and then comes in, and then goes outward, expands, and then comes in. And we have, the flattened version, right, is the infinity symbol. Okay, but we're getting off topic here. So, all these different paths to awakening, conspiracies is a path to awakening, anything is a path to awakening. And so, we have to also respect other people's path to awakening. If you have a friend that's going through an awakening and they are doing it because of yoga and breath work, maybe you don't want to be like, hey, the conspiracy awakening of like, well, there's reptilians and trafficking and people, this is a prison planet. And, maybe stuff like that is not for everybody. So we have to, and this is where we're going to get into the spiritual ego, is respecting other people's paths on the spiritual journey. So let's get right into spiritual bypassing. This is a hot topic, a hot word to talk about. And it's very interesting. And I've gone through my own evolution of understanding what spiritual bypassing is, because at first I kind of saw it only as the toxic positivity. I kind of saw it as like, oh, everything can just be kind of fixed and healed with like, well, it's all a lesson. It's all for the greater purpose. Everything's meant to happen. And that is true, and this is where we have this twofold concept again, because once you're living in one world and the physical world, you're going to constantly have a paradox because you're living in two worlds. So you're always gonna be hitting a paradox. So yeah, everything is happening for a reason. Everything is purposeful. This really is all a game. But there's a certain groundedness and a certain bypassing on that spectrum of understanding that information and still being connected to it. And there's this book too. I'll open a couple pages throughout. It's called Spiritual Bypassing. And it says when spirituality disconnects from what really matters. And that's when it becomes bypassing, right? Is when it's disconnecting from what truly matters. If it's making you no longer connect with other people, that's a bypassing, right? So let's talk about some of these different things, right? We all know that like excessive positivity, love and light only, these topics are the obvious spiritual bypassing, denying negative emotions. And let me actually pull up this graphic. It's going to be on the other platforms, not this one, because I'm streaming on 3 right now. So you guys won't see the graphic, but I'm going to explain it to you. Ego, right? And I'm going to get all into spiritual ego. Look at this graphic. So this graphic came from Valkyrie Art. She has some really beautiful oracle decks. I'm actually collaborating with her on one deck that is coming out, I think, next year. Well, obviously the year's over, so it's going to be next year. And each of the cards is written by a different person. Well, you want to know more about my services? Let me just pin this notice right here, and you can send me your email. And also, you guys on the other platforms who don't have it pinned here, like on TikTok, yeah, if you're interested in the QHHT, in the hypnosis, in the coaching, in the Substack, you can add your email here. And then those of you on the other platforms, there's many things linked around. So this graphic that we're seeing here on these platforms, we have bypassing, spiritual bypassing on one side and authentic healing on the other. So what is bypassing? Bypassing is a form of fragmentation. It's a form of separation. So what we're doing is separating things. But we all know oneness and wholeness is the true nature of us all. So, one of the number one things that is spiritual bypassing is high vibe versus low vibe, taking emotions and putting everything into a hierarchy. It's a hierarchy structure. So, when we take emotions and we're like, okay, well, there's love, light, peace, joy, acceptance, flow, ascension, these are high vibe. And then we have low vibe. Like this is resistance. This is being selfish. This is having judgment. This is being you know, judgmental, being having grief, feeling pain, feeling sad. These are low vibe. And this is a hierarchy structure. This is fragmentation. Now, in the authentic healing process, when you actually integrate these things, it becomes whole. The human experience is, yeah, sure, it's love and light. It's also judgment. It's also dark. It's also angry at times, hateful even. It's, being hurt, but also feeling joy. This is the whole authentic experience. This is the real human experience. The reason why spiritual bypassing is so focused on ascension is because it's a form of escapism. Now, this graphic is beautiful because it shows the structure of hierarchy in spiritual bypassing, whereas the structure in authentic healing and real integration is a circular path, right? We know that life goes through cycles. We know that winter will happen. We know that autumn will happen and all the leaves will fall off, but we're not afraid of autumn because we know that spring comes again. We know that the plants will bloom again, more beautiful next season. This is the circular integrated path. Now, the belief system being hierarchical, that some emotions are better, that some are more enlightened than others. Even the hierarchy of information, right? Like how, and I talk about this on, you know, my pages all the time, that like, why do people on the spiritual path need someone to say the information is coming from Arcturians, it's coming from the Galactic Federation, it's coming from Pleiadians, it's coming from, Bashar is channeling a parallel universe of the world in 300 years in the future where humans and grays have interbred and it's a hybrid race of alien humans. Why do we need that? Why is it not good enough that it's just from a gal or a guy or a person who's actually lived it or a person who's really had this real life experience? Like, say, someone like my husband, who's been in the military for 20 years, who's been to war multiple times, who has experienced this full spectrum of the human experience. I see that as more valuable than someone who's just like, the Arcturians are saying this. And it's like, why? This is actually a rejection of the self, too. Not only is it our hierarchy of bypassing, this is a rejection of the self. The people who then themselves think that they're not good enough to say the message themselves. It doesn't need to come from the higher power. It doesn't need to come from source. It doesn't need to come from some aliens, galactic federation, this and that. Why is a human being who has a lived experience not good enough to be an example, not good enough to give the information? So when we find ourselves drawn towards these things, what is it saying about the self? But also, what magnet to that person who also only needs to share information in that way, who is afraid to share who they truly are and hides behind the guise of, fifth dimensional beings and white clothing, right? Like, why is it? This is fragmentation. This is fragmentation from the self, right? Integrated is like, okay, yeah, I'll fuck some shit up and I'll still give you advice, whether you like it or not. you know, I'm going to tell you about my ayahuasca experience, but I'm also going to include how I was blowing up the bathroom and clogged the toilet during and had to get one of the helpers to be like, please go unplug the toilet. I'm embarrassed. So the structure of authentic healing and authentic integration is that all emotions are sacred, including judgment. This is like the number one topic that keeps coming up is like judgment is also an emotion that is valid. It doesn't need to be wished away. If I feel something towards another person, am I supposed to lie to myself because it makes me a bad person or low vibe? Or if some person, I sometimes will watch the soft white underbelly, which is like a whole mix of people. Mami Onami was on there, but then also they have like, you know, homeless. Uh, I'm not going to say the word on TikTok, but people who are doing stuff in the streets on there. And why is that person's lived experience not valuable? Can we judge you in return? Go right ahead. I ain't gonna stop you. Judge away. And then I could react to it. And we could go back and forth. Let's do it. We're humans. Come on. Come on. We're in this human experience. Judge, I'll judge you. You judge me right back. I'll make assumptions about you. You make assumptions about me. Let's have fun. Let's do it. We're human beings. Exactly. Scorpios rejoice in judgment. I've seen that YouTube channel too. Interesting to watch. Which one? Um, Hello. Oh, Billy Lord. um, you said you love Bashar's older transmissions, but his newer stuff is watered down. You think Daryl wants to retire? Maybe. Who knows? The work is messy and worth it. Yes, the work is messy. Haha, love your personality. Hi, Michelle. Good to see you. Okay, so I'm going to take down this graphic. What else is here? Action. So the action of spiritual bypassing is misappropriates spiritual teachings to justify emotional repression. So love and light to justify repressing part of ourselves, to reject parts of the self. The action in integrated authentic healing is you accept, embrace the full spectrum of the human experience. Like, how lucky are we? How lucky are we? You said you're tired of being human. Perfect segue to our next topic of the spiritual bypassing topic, right? So let me come here. Okay, so we all have our judgments towards spiritual bypassing, right? Once you kind of like work through and become more accepting of the way things are and the self, we all kind of get into this place where we're like, can become judgmental or triggered by bypassing. And one thing that I've been kind of talking about recently is we also have to understand that sometimes people need an assistance for the transition. Like, let's say, for example, the topic of Ozempic and the GLP-1s. This is a very polarizing topic, lots of mixed information about it, lots of varying experiences on it. I personally think that there's a lot of people who it benefits from them to get from point A to point B. Now, of course, there's many different things that can happen between A and B. But a GLP-1, someone who is, say, 100 pounds overweight, are they just going to track calories and go to the gym? No, they're going to become defeated. They might not be in a place that they have the discipline or ability to do the lifestyle change when it's that far off. Okay, if it's 10 pounds, then you probably don't need that assistance and you just need some lifestyle changes. But you need that bridge. And then at the end of that bridge, let's say then the medication is done, you're running out of it, you've done your cycle. If at that point you've made lifestyle changes and changed your habits, you'll be on the path to success and not need that. The people who have only relied on it as a crutch will revert back. This is the same thing with like antidepressants and SSRIs. So there's people who need to use medications to get from point A to point B. They're going through some transition. Like if they can't get out of bed and they are finding it hard to even take a shower, then maybe they do need a medical assistance to get to point B. Now, what happens between A and B in conjunction with the medication is what decides that when they get off of it, is it a crutch and they revert back? Or have they made enough changes in their life that they're able to then go on that path to success? So I do think that that is part of spiritual bypassing as well, is sometimes people need to go from point A to point B. And sometimes love and light and excessive positivity and denying negative emotions is what they need to do at that time. And we don't know what everybody's going through. Like someone could have been seriously like fighting for their life psychologically. They could have been fighting to stay alive, by their own hands. And someone could be in that situation. They might need excessive positivity, only love and light, no negative emotions. I can't think a negative thought. That might be the Ozempic or the SSRI that they need to get to point B. Now, what happens during that time, if they do integration, if they do work, if they do personal development, what happens between point A and point B is what determines is when they get to that other point and the bypassing starts to leave because the bypassing can't stay forever, where are they on the path to success? Even if they do revert back, who cares? Would people be so negative towards addicts? Right? People do. I mean, that's the part of recovery, right? Relapsing is a part of recovery. But that wasn't really what I wasn't talking about addicts. That's kind of another topic. But I was kind of talking about people using assistance to get from point A to point B. And more so medical treatments. You have power over your mind, not outside of events. Realize this and you will find strength, right? Not outside of events, right? So it's like things will happen. People go through transitional things in life. So let's talk about some of these spiritual bypassing things because this is using it as like a hiding spot instead of dealing with real things. Now, maybe you're at that point that you've done some spiritual bypassing and now it's time for the authentic integration. The unrealistic optimism, too, is like spirit will fix everything. And again, this is where we live in this paradoxical twofold life. There is an element of trusting the process that you need to be a little delulu to find the solulu sometimes. But then also, and this is where everything comes in balance. And so, one of the things when it comes to spiritual ego, which we're going to talk about next, is the absolutism and the full love, no darkness. I'm good. I'm not bad. Like these absolutes and duality is where also bypassing will happen, is that all high vibe stuff is the only way to live. And it's like, no, sometimes you do need to feel grief. Sometimes you do need to feel judgment. Sometimes you do need to acknowledge that you've been triggered and not judge yourself for being triggered because it's a normal part of the human experience. And this is why you're human right now. And, I was in my meditation the other day. I'm just finished the Joe Dispenza program with my husband, an at-home program. And there was like a final meditation. And in that meditation, it was talking about like emotional mastery and stuff and things like in my mind, the meditation was talking about that, the messages that I was getting. And it had said to me like a real big part of my journey right now is reminding people that they are human. I've already done oh, cute. That was cute. Thanks for that. Um, I've already done the 5D stuff, right? I already told everybody the star seed, 5D, Antichrist, Mandela effect, timelines, aliens, abductions, all of that. I've already went through all that, and I already told you guys all that. This part of my journey myself is reminding us all why we're human, and it's part of my own journey of being human, is living in that myself. And that's why I talked about the unconditional love a lot recently, because unconditional love is right, love without conditions. So being in bliss, not having judgment, not feeling negative emotions, not feeling sorry for yourself at times because things happened and you deserved better and people didn't treat you as good as you should have been treated in the past. Wishing away those things, ignoring those things, this is a fracturing of the self. So my friend Tony Ghazi, he channels mantis beings, and I loved one of these things that he said, where he said, while he was channeling, he said, imagine yourself as a piece of art. And every time you say, oh, I shouldn't judge. Oh, I shouldn't have gotten triggered. Oh, that wasn't high vibe. Or I shouldn't have thought that thing. I shouldn't have had that negative thought. I shouldn't have reverted back to my old diet. I shouldn't have broken my habits. I shouldn't have skipped a day at the gym. I shouldn't have had those extra calories. I shouldn't have had that drink again. I shouldn't have had that many drinks. I shouldn't have had those drugs. I shouldn't have had this. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done this thing. These, every time that we judge ourselves in these ways, a tiny little piece, a tiny little pixel of the painting gets thrown out and gets thrown away across the room. And the more that we do this to ourselves is the more we become fragmented. And the more we become fragmented, how can we truly have authentic love for ourselves? How can we truly unconditionally love ourselves when we're constantly putting the conditions on ourselves? Well, if I miss my meditation, if I fall off my routine, now, again, those things might be the Band-Aid that you need right now. So if somebody needs those things, that might be their point A to point B. That might be their Ozempic getting them to the next level. That might be their antidepressant getting them to the next level. We don't know where everybody's at. So, but we keep judging ourselves, putting conditions on ourselves. Oh, I'll start looking for a partner after I lose more weight. I'll become worthy when I make more money. I'll become this when I'm living in my purpose, when I no longer have this job that I don't like. Again, the conditions, throwing the pieces of the self all away from the self. And then what happens is you become fully fragmented, and parts of yourself are now stuck all over the place, living in loops outside of yourself. Now, what it is coming back to that authentic wholeness of what is the unconditional love. Let me get to my notes here. Yeah. Unconditional love is loving yourself despite being judgmental, despite talking shit, despite getting triggered, despite breaking your diet, despite breaking your routine, despite not going to the gym, despite not doing your affirmations, despite all of these things, and not in a way that is blissful. It is difficult to go through the true emotions of something, accept them. And what unconditional love is not that you don't experience these things anymore. It's the shorter time that it happens. Okay, let's say you have an emotional trigger. Maybe that was a week that you couldn't get over it. Now maybe it's 3 days. Now maybe it's 3 hours. Now maybe you get to a point where it's 3 minutes. But even if it's 3 days, you still love yourself. Even if it's 3 months, you still love yourself. So before I came on the live, I was on TikTok and we were looking at this Louise Hay Heal Your Life, Heal Your Body book. And what it is it picks like an illness, what's the cause of the illness, and then a affirmation about that illness. And when you read through these affirmations, like just again, prostate problems pops up. I love and accept myself. I love and approve of myself. Post-nasal drip. I acknowledge and accept that I am a creative power in my world. Periodontist. Tontist. I approve of myself and my decisions are always perfect for me. A rash. I love and approve of myself. Now there is many different affirmations, but just on one page, more than half of them, the affirmation is, I love and approve of myself. I love and accept myself. This is the origin of everything. I'm telling you guys, I do the QHHT. We ask people's higher self about what is the root cause of this illness? What is the root cause of this illness? What is the root cause of this illness? All different things that these people are dealing with. Never is it the seed oils. Never is it the ingredients. Never is it the chemtrails. Never is it any of these things that we think are making us sick. It is always coming back to some type of issue with the self, some type of not accepting the self, some type of rejecting of the self, some type of grief that is still being held onto, some type of repression that is still being held onto, some type of not forgiveness that is still being held onto. It's creating the dis-ease. So you could be completely unhealthy with your food and love and accept yourself. And you said, what about allergies? Allergies, I think, is like being like not feeling safe in your environment. Let me see. So allergies can also be, who are you allergic to, or denying your own power. The affirmation, the world is safe and friendly. I am safe and I am at peace with life. I've seen other people talk about the allergy thing through different means of information. And those people a lot of times will also say, like, is it you don't feel safe in your life? You don't feel safe in your environment. You don't feel safe in your body. Like there's some type of outside force that like can attack you. What about thyroid? So what is it? Everything comes back to I am safe. I love myself. I accept myself. Thyroid. Humiliation. I never get to do what I want to do. When is it going to be my turn? This is the type of belief that is connected to the thyroid. I move beyond old limitations. I now allow myself to express freely and creatively. And again, uh everything is in nuance, right? Because then it's spiritual bypassing, right? To 100% say all things only come from this. There's many different things that contribute. And a lot of times the reasons are bigger than just that one thought, but that one thought could actually shift your energy enough to then get you to start maybe sometimes needing the treatment that you need, you know? Because not to say everybody can just think away their illness. If it's become physical, that means it's been there long enough. Let's get back to this. Okay, so now the spiritual bypassing. Why the spiritual bypassing is such an important topic right now is astrologically what's happening too, right? So we are Neptune has been in retrograde for the last 6 months. Neptune has been in Pisces for like way too long. And Pisces, right, is this like slow energy, it's fish, it's intuition, it's spirituality, it's these things. But then we have Neptune, which is the planet of illusion, disillusion, uh, spirituality as well. When Neptune is retrograding through Pisces, this is the heightened of spiritual escapism, savior complex. What is my soul mission? I'm here to save the world because it becomes retrograde becomes inward reflection. So you become so inward, but it becomes spiritual delusion inward. So we've been in a cycle astrologically of spiritual illusion. And I think that's why I've been so triggered because I'm a big discerning person. So like I'm like very triggered by what I've been seeing with the spiritual bypassing, with judgment, with so much escapism, with so much outside of the self. It's the star seed, it's the universe, it's the ascended masters, it's this and I'm like When does it get back to the human experience that you were born here to have? And this is the important thing that, like, now on December 10th, what is it, the 9th? Tomorrow, December 10th, it's gonna be going into the it's gonna go direct. Neptune will go direct in the 29th degree of Pisces. So between now and January, I think 26th, we're in a phase of that last 29th degree. So all of the spiritual bypassing, the spiritual escapism, the savior complex, the hierarchy way of thinking, the high vibe versus low vibe, all of these spiritual bypassing and spiritual escapism topics are coming to a head because we are finishing out this cycle once and for all in our lifetime. We're not going to live for it to make its way around again. So it's going to go into Aries. Aries is the beginning of the zodiac. This is fire. This is action. This is ignited. This is also individualism. And this is where I think, as Neptune goes into Aries, I think the spiritual community is going to start transitioning into individual power. Right? Pisces is not about the individual power, right? It's the higher knowledge, the outsource of spiritual but then it's also very emotional, right? Now we've got like, so what is this? I really think, my prediction of it is that as we go into Aries, because also Saturn is going into Aries as well. So we're going to have Saturn leaving Pisces, going into Aries, and then Neptune going into Aries. And the first 2.5 years will be Saturn. And then I think it's 14 years for Neptune. This, I think, will be spiritual individualism, where people can trust the self. People are going to be comfortable saying it themselves. And you guys can mark my words, okay? I think a lot of these people who are channelers, a lot of these people who are psychics, they're going to start transitioning to being individuals as the person, start leaving needing to speak to these beings or these beings or these beings. They're going to start speaking as themselves. They're going to start writing things as themselves. I think this is, someone said Bashar wants to retire. Maybe Bashar will start to just be Daryl and will just come out and just only be Daryl. Like, I think that this spiritual individualism and people having confidence within themselves in a more integrated way, I think that that's what we're going to start moving into in this next wave of spiritual. And I think it's also going to move out of the, that illusion, disillusion, the 5D, the starseed, the outward, all the stuff is out there. The shift is coming. It's not here yet. The new children are coming. They're not here yet. This whole it's not here yet is Piscean retrograde type of energy. We're going to go now direct in Aries and go full force. And it's going to be like, no, it's now. If you guys have Aries people in your life, they're like, it's now. Let's do it today. Let's check it off the list now. And I really think that that's where we're going to start moving towards. I think it's going to start being like, no, the time is now. And then, okay, right, well, there's a spectrum of everything. So then we get to the spiritual bypassing. There is a part of spiritual bypassing, which is hyper fixation on the now, where then people become so fixated on living in the now. This is what it is. Spiritual bypassing is a form of extremism. And they can take these concepts of positivity and go too extreme. Take this thing of living in the now, go too into the now. The authenticity, and then it becomes fake authenticity because they're trying so hard to be authentic that they're overthinking of who they are, right? Then they avoid conflict so much that then they create conflict in their life because they're being disingenuine. The spiritual perfectionism. This is where we're going to start transitioning into the topic of the spiritual ego. So spiritual perfectionism, this is a form of spiritual bypassing. If you think that like you need to be perfect, this is what we see in a lot of like, if you see like a lot of people who do like manifestation coaching and different courses online and things like that, they're always like one manifestation coach that I'm thinking of, it was like everything was perfect. And then now she had like a life event that was, you know, uh, she went through like a bad breakup. Now the whole thing is about almost this like spiritual perfectionism of like, oh yeah, all the things that I learned from that breakup. Now I'm ready to teach you this. And there wasn't a moment of like, I'm a real person. It's going right back into that cycle of spiritual perfectionism. And the spiritual perfectionism is a form of superiority. This is a superiority complex. And because they don't have judgment, because they don't uh, say mean things, because everything they say couldn't be offensive to anybody. I appeal to everyone. I would never hurt anybody else's feelings. This is a form of superiority. And this is where we come into the spiritual ego. Let me see if there's anything else that I want to say about the bypassing. Actually, yes. Let's open up to a random page in the spiritual bypassing book. Well, maybe not random because there's a bookmark here, but okay. The next one will be random. Healthy versus unhealthy transcendence. To transcend something is to go beyond the point of ceasing to identify with it so that it becomes an object of our awareness. When this process is healthy, it's transcended, but it is not excluded from our being. It is rather repositioned and related in ways that serve our well being. When transcendence is unhealthy, what has been transcended is excluded from our being, resulting in escapism and disconnection. Where healthy transcendence embraces what's been transcended. Oh, TikTok. Unhealthy transcendence avoids it, making spiritual virtue out of rising above whatever they deemed lower, darker, or any other elements of their nature that's unaligned. This is dissociation disguised in holy drag. For those of us caught in spiritual bypassing, transcendence is an unquestioned virtue. However premature and unhealthy it might be, the spiritual ideal is maintained by a steady diet of ascension metaphors. Right? This book's good. But exactly. It's like, oh, yeah, all that stuff I went through is so separate than me. I actually transcended it. And it's like, oh, I got over all those bad things. I did this spiritual affirmation to avoid feeling the pain of some fucked up shit that happened in my life. You know, that is spiritual bypassing and spiritual elitism. And yeah, I don't think that people are genuinely helping by affirming and speaking their way out of it because no way I caught her live. You are here and welcome. So, like say for example, like someone will be like, "Oh, I went through this really hard time in my life, but this technique helped me to get through it." And it's like, "Okay, yeah, but what if everybody was just human and is like, this is the fucked up thing?" And not that everybody wants to share their stuff, but I really have found in my own journey in content, especially the long form stuff like on YouTube, when I've actually shared what I was going through and I actually shared the process of the thoughts and those things, people always still reach out to me about those videos and they're like, wow, that actually helped me to like understand something about myself. And oh, wow. Thanks. That was funny. Okay. Uh, but that is the integrated self, right? It's all aspects of being a human are valid. Being jealous is a valid thing. Do you want to stay in that forever? No. But and you can be proud of working through that quicker. But if you don't allow yourself to feel through it, then you just continue to create it again. And this is again, we're living this twofold situation, this twofold life. We're living in the paradox, right? So if we where attention goes, energy flows. And this is what it comes with like, oh, okay, well, I don't want to give any attention to any negative things that could be coming up for me because then what if I give attention to them and then I create them more? The fears that I'm having, what if I give attention to them and I create them more? The old story, old tapes playing in the head, if I give attention to those, what if I continue to create them? And this is where the paradox comes in because we actually do need to let those things pass through us like water, right? We have to let these things pass through us like water. But you know what? The water's going to get rocky at times. There's going to be waves. Let's open to another page. Oh, actually, getting more intimate with our lower qualities, all those things that we may think we should be transcending, is not particularly popular topic for those of us enamored in spiritual bypassing. In fact, it's such a downer that it's usually only handled with spiritual tongs, lifted and dropped into a sterilized vat, brimming with affirmations, meditational tranquility, and other uplifting strategies, as if there's nothing to be done with the lower other than converting it to something higher. But for all of our reverence for what we conceive as being higher, we can very easily spend an abundance of time looking down. Although we might argue that when we are so loftily sitting up there. Like, this is the thing too, is like the looking down, right? And then let's get to the spiritual ego, but I really like how he puts this. Um, Unfortunately, we do not actually descend or go down to any significant degree, but rather just look and cast our eye in that direction, gazing down with intellectual compassion at all the wayward souls and unspirited activities below. There is no way that we, given our involvement in spiritual bypassing, are actually going to leave its tower, its headquarters, its bastion of immunity, its insulated certainties. There's just too much pain down below. Who wants to openly feel that? In spiritual bypassing, descending to any noticeable degree into what is troubling or eating at us is usually held to be at all synonymous with failing or sinking or being merely a sign of regression, unless, of course, we lower ourselves just enough to help uplift those who are already down there. Like, this is what I'm saying about these, like, oh, well, I had this really hard time. But this technique that I'm going to teach you is the only way I can go down there to those depths is to lift you up, you know? And I just love the way he puts that. Okay, let's get moving on to spiritual ego. Okay. But before, a message from our sponsors, you. If you're on YouTube, do the YouTube stuff. Like the live, subscribe. If you guys see me not mentioning this during the live, tell me in the comments because I'm trying to remember to say that. Because a lot of people you're watching, but you're not subscribing. And I can see the numbers and I can see the statistics. And a friend of mine told me to start looking at it. And you know what? I'm a little disappointed in some of you. No, I'm joking. Also, I'm here every Tuesday. So come live. I answer questions in the comments as best as I can. And then also, I have my Substack. I have my, what was she reading? I was reading the book called Spiritual Bypassing by Robert Augustus Masters. It's a great book. So yes, I also have my Substack. So my Substack is my membership platform that we do once a month a healing hypnosis, group hypnosis. You're here every Tuesday. What time do you start? Eastern time is 9 p.m. Western Pacific time is 6 p.m. And now I live in the Central time zone, so I'm here 8 p.m. Central. So come here every Tuesday. Come live. It's a good time. This is for the people on the replay. Obviously, you guys are here live right now. And yes, join the Substack. That supports me, supports my work. And also, it supports you too, because the hypnosis is pretty good. Like I said, the last one we did was actually integrating with an unconditional love timeline, which is what I've really been sitting with, is that, like, the unconditional love is not bliss. Unconditional love is without conditions, accepting that you are still human, accepting that you still have negative thoughts, accepting that you are still not figuring everything out, that you're not living to your highest dream and potential right now. Accepting yourself and loving yourself right now is the unconditional love. And that is the process that we're going through. And this is the human experience. And if we were here to not be human, if we were here to be this or that, this is where the spiritual ego comes in, right? Is no, you're actually just here to save everybody else. You don't have anything to learn. Mhm. Okay, spiritual ego. All right. Let's see. Spiritual ego. Let me look at my other notes here because I don't like those ones. I have other notes from the last time I did a video on this, but I was in a very different headspace. That was 2 years ago last time I did this video. So I actually pulled up my notes from the last one. Oh, that's spiritual psychosis. That's spiritual bypassing. Spiritual ego. Okay. So the number one thing around the spiritual ego is respecting other people's journeys, right? So knowing that everybody's journey is unique is one of the things of spiritual ego is the downfall, right? So like let's say for example, the 5D ascension, new earth stuff is so rooted in spiritual ego. And like I said, you guys, I'm half of the reason a bunch of people on TikTok even know about that stuff is because how much I was in that mentality of thinking, we got to wake everybody up. We're running out of time. The planet is shifting. There's a shift. There's a new earth. There's a new timeline. Oh my God, people are going to be left behind. If we don't teach people how to be high vibe, then what are they going to do? They're going to be stuck. They're going to be trapped. All of these things. And respecting other people's journey is knowing like everybody is exactly where they need to be. If including the spiritual bypassing, right? That's part of my spiritual ego is accepting that other people need to be in their spiritual bypassing right now. People need to be in their only getting the messages outside from themselves because they don't feel worthy of giving the information themselves. Or they need to look to ascended masters. They need to look outside of themselves because there's a hierarchy, because they need something higher than themselves to validate them. So I need to respect that that's where they're at in their journey. There's spiritual teachers who are only love and light. I need to respect that where they're at right now, while I disagree with it, is where they need to be at right now. So, you know, but then, like I said, I go hard for judgment, right? Because judgment is human. Judgment's not the enemy. Being cruel to another person is. Having your opinion about that is not cruelty. And also how much it affects you. And also acknowledging, like, where is the judgment coming from? Is the judgment coming from fear or wounds, or is the judgment coming from discernment? These are things that have to be, looked at within the self. Um, Not imposing beliefs on others. This is a big thing with, spiritual ego. Ego in every way, right? But like, let's say even for example, there's parts of the spiritual thing which is like, you can't eat meat. If you want to be high vibe, if you want to ascend, you can't eat meat. I felt that way for 13 years. I just started eating meat last year. And I mean, I never really imposed on other people. I just, for myself, that was what I wanted to do. But this is one of those things. Let's see, what else do I have examples? Yeah, it's just a deeply personal process and understanding people have awakening because of all different reasons. People are dealing with things because of all different reasons. This could be the medicine that somebody needs to stay alive right now, or this could be the medicine that someone's taking to inflate their ego. There's many different paths, and we don't really know everything that's going on with people. So, when it comes to the spiritual ego, it's really about the sense of self, the identity, and the self importance, right? Is I'm here because I'm saving all of you. I'm an ascended master, which I do believe everybody's an ascended master, right? We're all one. Everybody's an ascended master. I don't believe that Buddha or Jesus or any of these people are above anybody. And I don't think that any of them taught that. That is a form of spiritual bypassing that comes from religion. Spiritual bypassing is not only New Age. Spiritual bypassing can be Christian or Hindu or Buddhist or Jewish or Muslim or this or that. Spiritual bypassing is in all, right? So people who believe that Jesus was above everybody, that Buddha is above everybody, that all of these things are above. This is a form of bypassing, right? Because this is sticking into a hierarchical thing. And it's like these people preach to themselves that they were not better than anybody. So we're going to then spin their own words and teachings to what? Have some type of weird fucking hierarchy going on. But the spiritual ego is this self-importance, right? One thing, as much as I've been into the starseed topic and things, and I think it's fun, I've never identified as any of these things. I will never say that like I'm this or that. And it's like There's people who need to be like, well, I'm also this, and I'm also this, and I'm also this, and I'm also this, and now I'm this, and I'm this too, and I'm this. And it's like, you know what you are? You're human, bitch. Sorry to break it to you. Are you all these other things? Sure. You could be whatever you want to be. But what are you? You are human. You said, what is the TK from the human side? It's JK Ultra. Um, but yeah, the only thing that you actually are is human. And that is something that comes from the spiritual ego, is not wanting to do that. But then that's a form of the bypassing too, because the ego and the bypassing are so close. Spiritual ego can lead to a sense of superiority, judgment, need to control or convert others. And it's really counterproductive to the spiritual path, right? The spiritual path truly gets us to the self. All of these things are outside of the self. All of these practices are outside of the self, adding more things. But the true spiritual path is removing the things that are not you, eliminating the things that are not the self, and then eventually coming to the self. And this is why all of these things that a lot from New Age spirituality, they sometimes are band-aids for us when we're not ready to look at the self. When we're ready to look at the self, then we don't need all the other stuff. Now you might want them for fun, and you have that choice to use any of these things for fun, do whatever you want for your enjoyment, for your pleasure. That's all good and all fine. You don't need to live with nothing because it's spiritual. That again is a form of spiritual ego because it's a spectrum and you can go extreme in everything, right? Like you can go all the way one way and be like, well, now I need no possessions because it's only the self. And then you can go the other way of like, okay, now I need to buy every gong, crystal, and you know, frequency tool and this in the world. It's a spectrum. And really, we're sometimes people who have extreme tendencies need to go to find the edges before they can find a middle ground, right? Because how do you know what the middle is if you don't know what the two sides are? If you're measuring something, you need to measure the whole thing and know the two sides so you can find the middle. People who live more in extremes do need to go all the way this way and all the way this way before they find the middle. So that might be their band-aid of point A to point B. They might need to then swing back to the middle. Political stuff is like the best example of that. Oh, geez. Oh, oh no. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh my God, he's dancing. Oh, wow. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm in the middle of I'm in the middle of something. I'm in a TikTok battle. Oh my God. Okay, I'll let it go. But no, my friend, please, I'm in the middle of something. I'm so sorry. Did he leave? I hope so. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. Okay. How long is it? Can you exit out? I don't know how, you guys. I've never been in this situation before. Okay. Okay. Let's do it. What is happening? I'm trying to figure out myself. We're going into the battle. But oh my God, you guys, look at his moves. Wow. It's great. Wow, these things are 5 minutes though. Oh my gosh, my friend, I'm in the middle of something. Please, you guys, send him some gifts. Send our friend some gifts, please. But I am gonna continue on this topic. So I'm gonna keep talking about what I'm talking about. Anybody who has gifts, send him the gifts, please. Okay, so the overcoming the spiritual ego is the interconnectedness of everything. You said you could keep going. Oh, thank you. Let's send him the gifts. Where are you? Where are you based out of? Wh- What country are you from? Oh, you're from Pakistan. Wow. Wow, nice. Oh, someone said you're trying to talk about something serious and he's dancing. Right. He's winning, you guys. He's winning. Give him the points, please. Please vote for him. Oh, you're so sweet. Okay, my friend, I'm gonna mute you, but I'm gonna tell them to keep sending you the gifts. But I'm gonna keep talking about what I'm talking about because I also have some couple of things that I'm doing here. Okay. Okay. I appreciate you. Okay. All right. Well, you know what? This is not taking ourselves so seriously. Okay, so let's talk about the the fragmentation. This is all the fragmentation. Have fun, be human, have this human experience. Look, he's winning. Hold on, I'll unmute him. I feel bad. Hi. Hijacked by a dancing king. Yes, I know. Um, YouTube has no idea what happened. He's not separate from any of us. Right? I mean, this is it, right? We're all connected. We're all one. Right? He's not separate from any of us. You're right, Aunt. You're right. TikTok has no idea what's happening. I mean, YouTube has no idea what's happening. So, YouTube, um, basically, there's TikTok battles. You again. So on TikTok we have battles and like they can send gifts to both people and then whoever wins. I don't know what happens. I've never been in one before. This is my first time. I accidentally clicked accept, but maybe he can learn. Maybe we can learn. Maybe he's our teacher. Yeah, maybe you're our teacher for today, teaching us. There are no accidents. Oh, I'm sorry. You said that dude is in tomorrow. He is dancing in the future for all of us. It is. He is in the future. He's very young. Wow. Oh, it says the winning host may propose funny tasks for the losing host to complete. Oh, you guys. Okay. You won, my friend. With much love to you. I appreciate you. Thank you. I appreciate you. Many blessings. How do I get out? I don't know. Bye, friend. Okay. What the heck? The longest 3 minutes of your life. Okay, mine too. Um, that was sweet though. He was cute. He was dancing. I'm like, "No, just send him the gifts. Don't waste your energy dancing, my friend." Okay. So I pulled a card for us from the Roast Iconic deck, right? Because this deck is getting called out by the universe. And yeah, what did we need to see? The shadow card came up, right? What is the shadow? The shadow, right? Is exactly what we're talking about when it comes to spiritual bypassing and spiritual ego and all of these things. It's like we are thinking that we need to not have the shadow, that we need to reject the shadow, that we need to reject parts of ourself, that we need to take everything so seriously. And you know what? Sometimes a young boy from Pakistan pops into your life and makes you realize none of it is really that serious or matters that much. Okay, let me answer some questions from the chat here and then let's see. Okay. Is it okay to move on from long relationships if the alignment is not there anymore? She tells me I'm bypassing because I don't want to deal with the problem, but the problems are beyond me as she has kids. Okay. So there's not one right or wrong answer when it comes to, maybe she says you're bypassing what because there's stuff going on that you don't want to deal with, but you feel that because it's not your um kids that it's not fully your problem. Is that kind of the case? Now, does it feel if the relationship is not in alignment anymore, then what are those things, right? Is the relationship not in alignment because you've changed? Is the relationship because she's changed? Is it because you've both changed? Is it because one person's changed and someone else hasn't? And are you still learning and growing together? You know? I mean, it really depends, on the situation. And, this is why I love the QHHT and the hypnosis work, because a lot of times what my advice is as a person is different than what the higher self's advice is from the higher perspective. So, one of the things that is, I've come to understand about my own stuff is I give good advice. Okay. I give very good advice. However, with hindsight, I've realized that good advice is not always what the person needs. Say, for example, I had a friend who she was with this guy over 10 years ago, and this person was kind of like using her money that she had for a settlement. And I was like, you got to get away from this guy. This guy's the worst. And the money was almost gone. And then I was like, look, let's take the last of the money. I will help you find a place. I will help you find the job. I will help you get everything furnished. I will figure everything out for you. But I need you to get out of this relationship because I can't watch this anymore. She ended up staying in the relationship down to then he spent the last of the money to the point where then she ended up moving back with her family in another state. She had to leave LA. And at that time, I was like, "Oh my god, like, that was so why did you do that?" Like, I was so upset. Now, let's fast forward 10 years, 12 years, whatever it's been. She moved back to that state that she came from, and because she was back there living with her parents for that period of time, she ended up finding the most amazing partner, amazing husband, soulmate, most aligned, perfect for each other. Now they have 2 beautiful kids, a third one on the way. They are living in alignment. It's so good. So, in the moment, I gave the right advice, but the higher advice was she needed to get pushed out of LA so she could end up back in the state she's from so that she could find her soulmate and have the life that she was meant to have. You know, say for example, I have many examples like this. Like there's times that I've given people advice and I've thought like this is the right thing to do. Objectively, that's the right thing to do. But every single person actually knows what's right for them. They actually know what they need to be doing. And when people stay too long in a relationship, it's because there's a higher part of themselves that knows that they still need to stay in that relationship. Sometimes it's from a lower part, right? Sometimes it's out of guilt, sometimes it's out of this, sometimes it's out of fear. I really do think everything still works for the highest perspective, because the reason she wasn't leaving was also because of fear, was because of, lower emotions, was the reason she stayed in that relationship. But then also, had it not completely screwed her up financially and in her life, she would have, oh, look, like the card that's on the bottom says get fucked. Like, maybe sometimes we're doing the thing that everybody knows is the wrong thing to do, but that there is a higher path. And how do I know what that person's higher path is? So I will give advice still, but I kind of give the advice more so from like a different perspective, because everybody knows what they need to be doing. Even if it looks terrible to themselves in the moment and it looks terrible to others. We need more for that dancing TikTok content. Right. Right, you guys, right. So kind of another thing that I've been thinking about doing, let me know what you think. I'm thinking about doing another live once a week, only 20 minutes, where it's cards. And it's not like an intuitive card reading. It's like we're reading on the energy of what's not like an energy update. It's like the grounded information with the assistance of cards, like right now. Courage card. Courage. So between the shadow card and the courage card, right? This is having the courage to face the dark shit, the heavy shit, the not perfectionism, the being able to make mistakes, allowing yourself to make mistakes and loving yourself anyway. Having the courage to love yourself despite being perfect. Loving yourself because maybe your body's not exactly where you want it to be, or your health's not exactly where you want it to be, or your money's not where you want it to be, or your career is not where you want it to be, or you don't know what's next, or you don't know what your next step is, where you can love and accept yourself despite. Yes, Carolyn. Yes to the second live. When should I do it? It'll be short. It'll be 20 minutes. It'll probably be a little longer on TikTok. Let me put this up on the screen too. On TikTok, if you want to put your information in, I'll send you an email with information about the hypnosis, the QHHT, the one-on-one coaching, and I'll add you to my Substack list, which is my newsletter. You guys over on YouTube, it doesn't have this feature built in like on TikTok. So if you guys want, go to the Substack, put your email in. That's my information, my newsletter. And then all the stuff is on the beacons. It may be dark, but where do you think the word of taking your own life goes into spirituality and spiritual bypassing? Okay, so it's a very touchy subject. Save the card live for Substack. Oh, maybe do the card reading on the Substack. Okay, okay. I like that. So that could be one of the free offerings on Substack. What do you guys? I like that idea. So doing that, and then you guys just get it to your email. Collective card pulls are your favorite, so you would tune in. Okay, so with someone taking their own life, this is a heavy topic because there's a lot of controversy around it in the spiritual space, because people talk about how it's kind of like a reset button. And that's like something that Teal Swan had gotten in a lot of trouble for saying, is that it's kind of a reset button. I don't believe it's a reset button, because in Journey of Souls, there's a subject in the book who takes his own life in his past life and then goes through the death process and goes in between lives before selecting this life. And when someone does that, there's a lot of also spiritual talk around that you go to hell, that there's punishment, that there's things like that, right? That's also like the religious things around it. Now, in that Journey of Souls story, when the person crosses over, they're kind of isolated at first from joining with loved ones, right? Sometimes we have this concept of like when you die, you join with your loved ones. They say when someone passes in that way, taking their own life, it's not a punishment that they're not taken to their loved ones. It's just that they need extra healing and extra rebalancing as a soul before they get to rejoin with their loved ones. It's not a punishment. It's they need that extra love. So this person goes through and he ends up in his favorite bar when he passes. In the favorite bar, as he feels comfortable there, his spirit guide comes in, and his spirit guide basically kind of casually talks to him, gets him comfortable, and then they start going over what happened. And this life review is a little different than the life review of a natural death. This life review is a little bit more specific, slower, takes more time, and then they kind of work through this process. Now, in that book, they say that then, after the soul has kind of gone through some healing, then it reintegrates back with its family and has a normal in between life experience with their soul family, with their soul group, with their soul friends, with these other soul connections that they've made throughout their lifetimes. And it becomes a normal process again. When it comes time to select their next life, what they said in the book is that you don't select kind of new lessons. You come back to what you are working on. And then it becomes like now the journey is to go through those things and to not take your own life. So you kind of, there's no like, it's all about the experience, right? Earth is a school, but in my own journey, in my own evolution, is believing that also Earth is just an experience. It's a place to experience. So I think not so much you don't get to move on to new lessons, but then your soul still wants to complete that cycle that it came here to experience. So then you kind of will experience a lot of the same lessons that you did in that past life, a lot of the same experiences of that past life. But now you're going to go through it. And they said also, too, if you're someone who has done that in a past life, then you might choose a body that is more inclined to mentally have those tendencies of thinking of those things or wanting those things. Because there is mental stuff that is makes people more susceptible to that as well. Oh, JK, you are ultra real. It's good. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for the super chat. Um, so I wouldn't say it's just a reset button. Everything could be considered a reset button, right? Any form of passing. But I don't think it's just that simple. I think the best thing that we can do is, well, and then also what if you've lost somebody in that way, right? If you've lost somebody in that way, that's extremely, 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 extremely difficult. It's one of the hardest ways to lose people, actually, because at least with sickness, at least with accidents, even if they're abrupt, there's there's questioning, of course, but when somebody takes their own life, there's this constant questioning of that person of like, what how did I fail that person? And it's always like this feeling of like, how did I fail that person? And it is very tormenting to the people around because, that sucks. Because then other people feel that they let that person down. And everything is a part of the experience, right? We coming to the spiritual bypassing topic. All feelings are valid feelings. All feelings are sacred. But I think that I personally feel that like with the exception of terminal illness, there is always some way around it. There's always something that you can find fulfillment in your life. There's always a way around it. And my advice for anybody that is dealing with those thoughts or feelings is time. Give it time. Not some, okay, sure, suicide hotline type of stuff, right? that's not the advice that I think people need. People need time. Time will pass. And those feelings, those thoughts, they will shift. And there's so many times where we've been at low points in our life and then we look back and we're like, "Damn, I can't even believe that I was feeling that back then." Like, give yourself life to like, the time to flourish in life, the time to experience things. If it's all an experience and the only thing we're here to do is experience, then just go a little longer of experiencing, and you never know what's around the corner because also those rock bottom moments, you know, people I know who've, like, made attempts, you know, a lot of things have come into their life after that, that, like and looking back and being like, "Wow, that was." You said when someone has a miscarriage, your favorite female singer unalived herself because of this. Wow, that's sad. Right, but again, these experiences, this is where we have them. This is the only place that we're gonna have these things, and being human in this human experience, like, literally, the whole point of being human is to be human, right? To be a human being, and it's like, everybody this is, like, what came up in my meditation of, like, kind of what my focus is to be for these next, months or whatever, as long as this is compelling me, but, like, it really is, like, so many people are trying to escape being human, are sick of being human. They're a Pleiadian, they're an Arcturian, they're this, they're that. Um, they're all of these things. They want to get out of here. They don't like the human life. And it's like, and then once we get out of here, we're crawling to get back in. We're clawing back to get back into this experience, to be able to have and feel and do the things that we get to do inside this earth reality. So it's like, even if it's hard, just stick with it. Give it more time. That would be my advice. Um, and I really, really suggest that nobody do that because you're here to experience. Just push the experiences a little bit further and a little bit more time. And I promise things always come in. I've seen so many instances of this, of people who were ready to end their life. And then an amazing partner comes in, an amazing friend comes in, an amazing experience comes in. How do you feel about the general theory of the law of one? I mean, I agree, mostly, right? I think a lot of this stuff is story. I think Law of One has a lot of stories in it, similar to the Bible, right? These like Orion Wars and these light versus dark, Star Wars type of stuff, But I think that the general message, right, is basically we're all one. And basically, to be 51% service to others and 49% service to self is kind of this sweet spot to kind of keep pushing everything forward. I think it has a great overall message. All right, guys. I mean, maybe another question or two. The questions are heavy, but you know what? This is what we get when we talk about not spiritual bypassing, when we talk about addressing the hard things, right? So, so bring on the hard things. He said, "No." Well, we've been going now for almost about an hour and a half. Um, so yeah, use your discernment, guys. When it comes to the spiritual stuff, when it comes to these things, use your discernment, use your intuition, use your critical thinking, use research, use mindfulness, use red flags, all of these things. Check in with yourself, have balance, have a community, check in with other people, reflect, or hard conversations equals easy life. I like that, DJ. That was a great explanation. I agree with you on the part on mental health, right? Reality matching your vibe. So this is what we talked about a little bit earlier is that sometimes you have to fake it till you make it, which is why I said that sometimes spiritual bypassing is the antidote that you need to get to the next step. If your life is out of alignment, you might need to fake it a little bit to get to the next step. but it's not long-term sustainable. The only thing that is long-term sustainable is the true integration, the true acceptance of all of the parts of the self, the part that did the wrong thing, the part that messed up, the part that abandoned yourself, the part that stayed too long in that relationship, the part that made a mistake, the part that spent too much money, the part that ate too much, the part that drank too much, the part that this, the part that is a mess, is fucked up, is all these things. That's the true integration, and we can avoid those things, but they will come up. So kind of like similar to being on Ozempic, being on SSRIs, you might need to get to the next step. But if you did no personal work on those SSRIs, you get off, you're going to revert right back to depression. If you didn't do the lifestyle changes on the Ozempic, you're going to get off and you're going to gain all the weight back. It's normal to gain some back, right? Because people are always fluctuating, but gaining it all back, because that's what happens. The spiritual bypassing, the fake it till you make it, the positive affirmations, they might be to get you to this next stage in life through a transition. But like we said in this book, the healthy transcendence versus unhealthy transcendence. If the past is so separate from you that it's not even you anymore, then maybe it's not integrated. You saw the shadow card and it made you ask, but hopefully a lighter question comes through. Oh, no, I appreciate bringing in the question because that's the hard stuff. It's not just about love and light. This is the real shit. I'm very thankful for your QHHT prep video a while ago. It set you up for a great session and that set you on a good spiritual path. Thank you. Thankful I found you. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I think it's not tough for some people who see others channeling and being clear while going through a dark night of the soul and feeling like the spirit guides are ignoring their human counterpart. Ooh, what a good way of saying that, because that's where was like kind of getting at before, where I'm like, sometimes you're doing a disservice to people by not being human, by relying on the psychic abilities and these things like that so heavily. Like I've done several QHHT sessions where the person is like, well, I don't know what my gifts are, or I don't trust, I don't know what my intuition is. I don't know what my spirit guides are. I don't know who they are. I can't channel. I can't see things. I don't have the ability to see. And I'm like, no, you have the ability to do what all of these people are doing on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all these things, these books. You have the ability to do all of it. It's just these people are like more confident than you. You do have all of these abilities, and these people are not better than you, above you. They're not more connected to God than you. They're not more ascended than you. None of that. Nobody's above anybody. So I 100% agree. And I think when we get information from someone like a Bashar type of person, and then from someone who's just a regular person that's talking about it, they're gonna put the Bashar person on a pedestal because it's coming from another dimension. And it's like everything comes from another dimension. The mind is beyond this dimension. Like it needs to be more grounded because I mean, I really do believe that this is the next stage of Neptune going into Aries, that it's like people are going to start trusting themselves more. And they're going to start knowing that like they have the ability to get this information because all the old spiritual messages, all those original channeled messages from like the 70s and 80s and 90s, they all said that the time is coming that nobody will ever need a psychic again, that nobody will ever look to a channeler again because it will be in everybody to do it. So that's what those old messages always said. I love that point. You said if we're fully accepting of being human, it's easier to find other people like us. I agree. Ooh, you guys are dropping the bombs of knowledge right now because that's what it is. A lot of times, people who are so like in that other world of like, spiritual being, then they don't find people in real life to connect with. And even if the people are right in front of them, they don't see it. Thank you, Jen, for a terrific Tuesday Night Live. Tough questions, raw answers, and future dance contests. I know. That poor guy, that like kid in Pakistan. I hope he made some money off of that. You saw a rocket-shaped shooting star that was neon pink and green, and you lost your memory shortly. Oh, wow. Maybe it was a sighting of some sort. Like attracts like, right? And the more that you accept yourself, the more that people accept you and you find other people who accept themselves. And then it's a lot easier to the fake beard was so cute. I know. He had a fake beard on, you guys who were not seeing what happened on TikTok. Someone asked you about spiritual psychosis and you're curious about it too. Okay, so all psychosis is spiritual, right? Because every time somebody goes through psychosis, they're all of a sudden Jesus, new incarnation, right? So all psychosis is spiritual. But there's ones that are, we talked about spiritual awakening, right? Your awareness from here to here. Sometimes that's rocky. Sometimes it's very ungrounding. So the intake versus the outtake, right? If you're intaking too much and you're not outputting enough information, if you're consuming a lot, you're going to become ungrounded because there's nowhere for this to go. Similar to anxiety, right? Anxiety is the energy all going in, creativity is the energy going out. So with spiritual stuff, if you're taking in 24/7, you're listening to the channeled messages, you're listening to this, what is the weekly update? What is this? What is this? And it's like, it's addictive because we're all on that part of the spiritual journey at a point where you need to take in a lot of information, but then it starts to get you very ungrounded and starts to get you very disconnected. And the more you become disconnected, you might become so disconnected. And if you're not a naturally grounded person, some people can intake, but they're very grounded. So they're fine. They're not going to go into spiritual psychosis from overtaking too much information in. It can also be triggered by trauma. It could be triggered by psychedelics. It could be triggered by medication like Adderall. So be careful. If you're going to be taking in a bunch of information, be careful with that Adderall. Also, these ketamine treatments. I had someone DMing me one day about the Antichrist. And I was like, oh, like I wouldn't want to engage with it. And then she was like, yeah, well, you tell. And she got really nasty with me. And I was like, are you okay? Like, I wanted to like lash out at her, but I was like, are you okay? She was just like kind of a random person in my DMs. I'm like, and she was like, no, I'm not okay, actually. And I'm like, are you taking anything? And she's like, no, but I am doing ketamine treatments at home. And then I'm like, girl, you need to, what have you been watching? And she's like, well, I was watching these videos. And she said she's been watching all these videos. And I'm like, yo, if you're doing the ketamine treatments at home, don't you be watching no conspiracy videos on YouTube and TikTok. Okay. Don't you be doing that because you're in an altered state. So you have to be careful when you're in altered states, what type of information you're consuming. In general, what information you're consuming, but like you in an altered state, Um, what else? Hallucinations, right? Psychological distress, fear, confusion, overwhelm. It could also be some hormonal stuff. There's a lot of things that can trigger it. The best thing is to slow yourself down before it gets there. And if you're taking in a lot of spiritual information that is very out there, cosmic, but you're not doing personal work, which is why my whole entire Substack is about personal work. You're not going to see anything about these topics over there because it is the best rabbit hole is the self. You go down the rabbit hole of yourself into your subconscious mind, into your beliefs, into your fears, into your habits, into what you are thinking about and believing and all of these things, these limiting beliefs. That is the best rabbit hole to go down. So I think you have to balance this type of Starseed, Galactic Federation thing has to be in alignment with true personal development. You need to be reflecting and looking at the self, So, and, if your ego starts to get too inflated, and there is this weird thing, right? Psychic psychosis is very close, right? Because people break through the veil, they start seeing, and at that point, you need to ground. You need to get on some grass. You need to get around some people that care about you. You need to eat some heavy grounding foods and you need to slow down. Slow down on the information. Yes, water, drinking water, eating, making sure you're eating, getting on that grass, getting with the people. You said it can be triggered by an overactive third eye for sure. Right. But that's why the grounding stuff and the personal development, it pulls you back to being you, back to the self. And also sometimes it has to run its course, which is the other fucked up part, right? Sometimes it just has to run its course. But it can be very damaging after someone's gone through that. Some people can bounce back and be fine. Some people don't bounce back. So you really, if you feel yourself getting ungrounded, take the steps. There's nothing wrong in taking the steps. You're never going backwards. There's no such thing as going backwards in your journey. You're always moving forward, even if you, like it says, like putting these negative things behind you as if they're like regressing. They're not regressing. Okay, let's read one more thing from the Spiritual Bypassing book. Okay, so this chapter is about responsibility. So another part of spiritual bypassing is taking on the responsibility of like the collective and things like that. So the tendency to take on too much of the responsibility for the relational difficulties is rooted in a disembodied sense of self, in which a healthy ego structure is supplanted by the identification with being bad or not good enough. Focusing on our faults reinforces this diminished sense of self, even as we attempt to make up for it by being good. Yes, what bothers us about our partner may speak volumes about us. What we don't like about him or her may indeed be a projection of what we don't like about ourselves. But to assume that whatever bothers us is no more than a reflection of something in us prevents our taking necessary stands with our partner. When we spiritually legitimize the belief that we create whatever ills or misfortunes befall us, we dig ourselves into an even more problematic mindset about events over which we had little control over. If a girl is hurt and we assume she has created that situation and is therefore responsible for it, we are, however, inadvertently justifying the act. Perhaps asking what lesson she was trying to teach herself by having chosen to be part of that situation. In the pantheon of dumb questions, it is a top contender, wrapped up in appallingly insensitive and disembodied metaphysics. Disembodied metaphysics. If someone is abusing us and we choose to view the situation as something we have created, then we are just doing time in a me-centered hell that have turned away from taking a necessary stand. While it is true that we have a great impact on our world, it does not mean that we literally cause our reality to be brought into being at all times. Being responsible for our actions is not the same as being solely responsible for creating our reality. This is a tricky area because sometimes we can have such an impact on our environment that we radically alter it, as well as symptoms of a deadly disease miraculously leave us. Since every situation has had many factors at play, so many causes to infinity in staggeringly complex interplay, we cannot conclusively say, let alone prove, that we and we alone create our reality. Interesting topic. Okay. Was having a spiritual awakening and then didn't do the personal work led to the dark night of the soul. That was very tough. Hit bottom, and now I'm doing the personal work. And that's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's exactly, I mean, you go back to on my Tuesday night lives, my shadow work Tuesday night lives. I was hanging on for dear life in those things. I was hanging on for my dear life in those shadow work journey, coming on here every Tuesday, crawling. Spiritual healing is like an office job. Once you think you're done, the executive comes with another stack of paperwork. True. Me falling in here was definitely divine timing. Thank you so much for reading that. Thank you. What's your big three? Leo sun, Scorpio rising, Libra moon. What was that metaphysical phrase? Disembodied metaphysics, was it? Disembodied metaphysics. And then the other one was you're doing time in a me-centered hell. Okay, you guys. I appreciate you. Do the things, the YouTube things, like it, subscribe. join the Substack. As a free member, you can upgrade to being a part of the paid membership to get access to the hypnosis. I'm going to start in January having more free offerings there. Maybe that is the card reading, right? Maybe we do that on the Substack. Okay. All right, guys. Well, thank you. Thanks for being here. We've been here for a while. Anyway, see you guys next Tuesday. Disembodied metaphysics, doing time in a me-centered hell. Thank you so much for the wisdom. Thank you for your wisdom. And thanks to our friend in Pakistan. All right, guys. See you guys next Tuesday.